Hello again, everybody. This is Rocket Rick J18, and today I'm going to talk to you about uh, Skaght at Rainbow Studios. And the reason that I want to talk to you about Skaght is that I have now accumulated a collection of his marker doodle Monday cards. I'm sure not all of them, but Skaght, if you watch this, by any chance, and you notice that there are some missing that I don't have that you still have some of, I'd love to have them. So, um, at, at of course the regular price, not asking for any freebies. So, if you do see this, uh, just bear that in mind. And in the meantime, let's look at some cards. So the most recent cards that I have received are his cards of Dave Parker and Dick Allen. And so I am very happy to have these and very happy to be able to show them to you. These are two of my favorite players um, from my past. As many of you know, I grew up outside of Philadelphia. Well, I didn't grow up there. I spent 1 year outside of Philadelphia in the suburbs, a little place called Havertown. And then we moved to, my mom and I moved to be closer to my grandmother and my uncles. And we moved to Newark, Delaware. And so in 1964, the Phillies were really doing great, and part of it had a lot to do with a brand new rookie that just came up for them, named Dick Allen. Of course, they called him Richie Allen back in those days, and he's so named on his baseball cards, at least the earlier ones. And then at some point, I think 1 year he was Rick Allen, or Rich Allen, I forget which, but and then he finally became Dick Allen, which is what he was all along, as it turned out. So I'm happy for his memory. Um, he passed away from cancer, as well, about 3 4 years ago, and so his election he never got to see or experience the happiness that goes along with that. Of course, his family was thrilled, as they well should have been. The other fellow there is a guy that came up through the minor leagues. He was signed and came up through the minors during the time I was in college, not far from Pittsburgh. And so, and he was with the Charleston, West Virginia minor league team that was the Pirates AAA franchise at that time. So he and another rookie outfielder named Richie Zisk, they came up to take over left field and right field. And Dave Parker was a worthy successor uh, to the great one, Roberto Clemente. Um, Parker was just a thrill. They had a sign up in the right field, uh, telling us all about the Cobra corner, which he hit many line drives, including ones that went over the fence at Three Rivers Stadium. And he also hit for high average. He won 2 batting titles, was the most valuable player in 1978 and the most valuable player in the 1979 All-Star game when he threw out a runner at third base and a runner at home plate. And just a thrilling display of just a A-plus throwing arm. Really a terrific outfielder. He was probably a more talented outfielder than he sometimes displayed. On the throw in the All-Star game to right field, I mean from right field to third base, it was only had that opportunity because he misplayed the fly ball that was hit to right field. Perhaps because of the glare, who knows why. But he had a habit of making those one-handed catches where he would kind of slap the ball as he came down on it. And, every once in a while, he'd slap it about 10 yards away from him. So, we overlooked that. And he was a great, great thrill to have on the team. He and Stargell together were, the keys. The key batters in that lineup for the family. So, as most of you probably know, Dave has Parkinson's disease now, and he is not as mobile as he was. Saw him a couple of years ago at the inaugural Pirates Hall of Fame induction, in which he was inducted. And he had a great. He got an opportunity to say something. Steve Blass did most of the talking. He was so designated, and but Dave asked if he could say something, and he recited a little poem about the sun's going to shine, the wind's going to blow. And one thing for sure, old Dave's going to go 4 for 4. So I thought that was pretty good. And it was a thrill to see him there. And wish him all the best. And we will look forward to that opportunity to see him again. So that's those cards. And now, let's see, I'm going to show you a card of Shoeless Joe Jackson in the Field of Dreams pose there. And also a card of Fernando Valenzuela with his trademark look to the sky as he was getting ready to deliver whatever pitch he was going to throw that so confused the hitters back in those days. These are 2 really great cards, so happy to have those. Next, we have 2 cards one of Bryce Harper and one of George Brett. And Bryce Harper is one of the most thrilling hitters in baseball today. You just always look for him to do something special, and he very often does it. George Brett was one of the best pure hitters in baseball during his time. The Royals had a hitting coach named Charlie Lau who, like many hitting coaches and pitching coaches and managers, he was a catcher, kind of a a backup catcher most of his career, but a very serviceable catcher. And he was one of those guys who preached, staying back on the ball and swinging through so you could get the maximum amount of the barrel of the bat in the strike zone, the hitting zone. And George Brett was absolutely excellent at that style of hitting. Somebody asked him how good a hitter somebody asked Charlie Lau how good a hitter George Brett was, and he replied, "He can hit buckshot with barbed wire." And I thought, man, what an analogy! That's one of the best, highest praises I think that a hitting coach can give to one of his hitters. And as you know, George Brett, Rod Carew, and Tony Gwynn all made a run at 400 and came agonizingly close. I think two of those guys hit 390, and then one of them I think hit 394, if I remember correctly. If you're fans of any of those guys and that's not right, please leave a comment. But they were both thrilling hitters to watch. Whether you were a particular fan of those teams or not. Next, we have two hitters, pitchers, and a pitcher and a hitter rather, that achieved a great deal of notoriety in the 80s and 90s. One of these cards I'm going to show is a somewhat controversial card. I don't think it should be. I can understand how the mistake was made, even though he takes full responsibility for it, and he's in the midst of doing a new marker doodle, and that's the Curt Flood card. And this card is not Curt Flood. It's actually Lou Brock, as Scott pointed out, and it was pointed out to him by Curt Flood's daughter. And Scott, as only Scott could do, I think has become pretty good friends with Ms. Flood. And so, congratulations, Scott, on taking a situation that could have been very negative and making it into a real positive, and it's going to continue to be. So. Everybody knows the story of Dwight Gooden. He came on the scene in 1984. He was lights out in 84 and 85. In 1986, he led the team to a world championship, its second one. And we can talk about the Bill Buckner and Mookie Wilson and all of the things that happened to make that championship come about. But it was Dwight Gooden and his companion Darryl Strawberry who carried the day all year long for the Mets and into the World Series. So thrilled to have those cards. The next cards that I have here are first a picture of the great Negro Leaguers Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige. Maybe the best hitter and the best pitcher in the Negro Leagues, and Satchel Paige at the very end of his career. Although he pitched in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, not continuously, and but he was always a thrill to see. He always did something special. And Josh Gibson, of course, now is has the probably the most number of home runs and the highest batting average according to Major League Baseball statistics, even though he didn't have the opportunity to play in Major League Baseball. He played at the highest level uh, that would have him, to be quite frank. Um, and it's a shame because he must have been an awesome force to witness, Josh Gibson. Um, you know, Satchel Paige was so much like Yogi Berra in some of his sayings, like "Don't look back, something might be gaining on you." And he did so many crazy things. He waved his infield. It was starting to come out for the ninth inning back to the dugout, and he pitched the ninth inning without any outfielders. Uh, and he didn't need them because he struck out the side. The Roy Campanella picture is a classic pose of Roy. It's the pose that is on his 1951 Bowman card, which in turn was taken from a Wheaties Premium that was issued. It's just a classic catcher photo. It may be the classic catcher photo. So I have the 51 Bowman card and the Wheaties Premium, which I've showed on this channel in the past, and this is another card of that great pose. Roy Campanella won three MVPs in the early 50s. Um, he was the spark plug for those teams. He was a key element in the only uh, World Championship for the Brooklyn Dodgers, the 1955 World Series champions. Um, and he won his MVPs during the same roughly period of time that Yogi Berra won his three most valuable player awards in the early 50s. Not the same years, but close to the same years. So uh, Roy met with a tragic accident at the end of the 1957 season. He did not go with the team to Los Angeles because in that accident he was paralyzed from roughly the armpits down. He had what's known as a burst fracture of the seventh cervical vertebra, and that's an injury that is still results in paralysis, basically from the upper chest through the armpits, and so that you have some you have some emotion in your lower arm, but you don't have the feeling in it. The and the feeling in the fingers is marginal at best. He could sign, and he continued to sign really up through his death. He But he had to wear an appliance in order to be able to manipulate the whatever writing instrument he was using, pen or a pencil or whatever. But he got to be pretty skillful at it, and he had to he had to trouble with moving it, and so his penmanship tended to trail off at the end of his signatures made that way. So, but he was happy to do it. He was always a cheerful soul, and he certainly was missed by the Brooklyn Dodgers. Uh, and he certainly was missed by baseball and by all of his family and all the people who knew him. A great player. Um, the next two cards that I'm going to show are people well known to the hobby. Currently, Mike Trout on the left there. Uh, I think he was considered a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm not entirely sure how folks feel about him now, but he's certainly on track to be a Hall of Famer. He's was a rookie in 2011, and so he's completed his 10-year tour of duty. Um, Great player, uh, five-tool guy. He can hit, he can throw, he can catch, he can run, he can steal, uh, and he obviously hits for power. The next guy up there is also well known to the hobby as Jackie Robinson. As everyone knows, was the first modern major leaguer to break the color barrier in 1947. Some Negro leaguers did play early in the 19th century, uh, and there were obviously many Latino players who, were considered to be, I don't know how else to say it, I mean, white enough to play in the major leagues in the teens and 20s. And I know we have Cap Anson, I guess, to take shoulder the blame, but it was not just Cap Anson that kept black players out of Major League Baseball, and still even today it comes up the ugliness of racism. So Jackie, however, was a Hall of Fame baseball player, and that had nothing to do with his color. He was the most exciting player in baseball during his time. He was he was smart enough, wise enough, and willing to take the heat for the time, the first year, couple of years in baseball. Branch Rickey had asked him not to retaliate during his first 3 years, and eventually, I think in that third year, he said, you go ahead and do whatever you feel you need to do. And so there was, a lot of, I won't say that he retaliated for no reason, but when it was appropriated, he did retaliate. And there were a couple of fairly well-known fights. Um, one of the best stories, I think, happened early on in 1947. I think it was, if I remember correctly, a game in Philadelphia where Jackie, I think, got some of the most fierce taunting and name calling, horrible names. And it was early in the season after he was called up, and before the game got underway, His double play mate, Pee Wee Reese, came over to him and just, casually put his arm around Jackie's shoulders. And it was a signal to both his teammates and the fans that Jackie was a member of the Brooklyn Dodgers and they were happy to have him. And that's a very touching moment. And I believe Scott is in the process of doing that picture in his some of his artwork. So again, we're thrilled to have those cards. The next two cards that I have are two sensational hitters, Miguel Cabrera, who recently won the Triple Crown, and he's retired now from baseball, and he's on the watch list for first ballot Hall of Famers, which he will certainly be one. And the guy who's next to him there doesn't really need any introduction. It's the great Yogi Berra. And Yogi, was just a classic guy. He was known just as much as Casey Stengel for his, verbal comments. The best one, one of the best ones, I'll say, in my opinion, was that he was giving directions to someone who was going to visit his house, and he lived up on the hill. And when you got to the split in the road, you could go either to the right or the left, and either one of them would take you to Yogi's house. So when he gave the directions, he said, when you get to the fork in the road, take it. Without any further comment. He knew what he meant, and he was absolutely right, as he often was. And the next two cards that I want to show are Scott's Don Mossy card. Scott loves Don Mossy, and he has written down in there, XOXO, Don. I guess one of his nicknames must have been the Sphinx. That's a Don Mossy doll that has made an appearance at several shows. And on the back, he's got the stale gum shown on it. And anyway, you got to love that. The other card is the card of Gary Carter, who toiled somewhat in obscurity in Toronto, or Montreal, I'm sorry, for a number of years. Came into his fame, I think, as much as anything else, with the New York Mets, and he's pictured here as a Met. Hall of Famer, great catcher, great hitter, and apparently, as far as I'm aware, he was a great guy to be around. And the last card that I have is this Chipper Jones card. Pictured here, of course, with the lovable Atlanta Braves. And who can forget, speaking of Mets, by the way, he was never known as Chipper in New York. He was always called Larry, or Larry, Larry. Um, but another great hitter, and he's seen often at shows now, and very uh, affable signer. So Chipper Jones. Well, that's what I have to show you. Um, Looking to add more cards as they become available from Skaught's collection. And Skaught's just a great guy. And I hope you enjoyed this tour through some of his uh, baseball cards and marker doodles, some of them, others cards that really depict other art cards that Skaght has worked on. And you'll see his art on display with many YouTubers. I just saw a video today of Matt at the Card Story, and he was showing off his Hank Aaron creation that Skaght did. Um, not the original. The original, I think, is hanging on Mike Baseball Collector's wall. But anyway, thank you, Skaght, for all that you do for the hobby. And let me just switch back to the camera here and just offer my outro here. This is Rockin' Rick J18, wishing all your collecting dreams come true.